Good evening. We are ready to start the Platting Board for February 1st, 2023. At this time, I'd like a roll call, please.
Don Porter.
Present.
Ryan Moorman.
Present.
Zach Young.
Present.
Tom Gould. Sam Laffey. Brandy Pennington.
Present.
Jenna Weltzing, Karen McGillivray, and Stacy Wessel are excused. You have a quorum. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Next item on the agenda is approval of the approvals. Item 1 will be action summaries. So I'll need a motion for that? Oh, there's no action summaries, correct. We'll need approval of the minutes of January 4th, 2023. I'll need a motion. Motion to approve has been moved by Ryan Moorman. We'll need a second. And seconded by Thomas Gould. All in favor? Oh, are there any corrections to the minutes? Seeing none, minutes are approved. The next item of business is special order of business, disclosures. I believe we have some disclosures for 2 of our members. Sam Laffey and Brandy Pennington. Sam?
Thank you. As a new member of the board, I abstain from voting on the minutes and will abstain from voting on the consent agenda as I was not yet seated on the board at the time of the January 4th meeting.
Thank you so much. Do we need a motion? And then Brandy?
This is Brandy Pennington. I was not yet seated on the board. However, I did listen to the audio recording, and I believe I can participate in voting.
Thank you, Ms. Pennington. That'll be good. Is there any other disclosures? Seeing none, we'll move on. Item D on the agenda is the consent agenda. And so, well, oh, I'm sorry. The next is informational item, abbreviated plat action summaries for 1/9/23. I will need a motion. No? No? Okay. So those are just for information. Thank you so much. We will move on to the consent agenda. Is there anything to be pulled from the consent agenda? Oh, okay, before that. I'll need a motion on the floor for the consent agenda. The motion has been moved by Ryan Moorman and Thomas Gould. Is there anything to be pulled from the consent agenda? Seeing none, do we have to vote? Are there any objections to the consent agenda? Seeing none, anybody on the phone?
No.
Thank you so much. Then it's approved. Moving on to old business, there is none. And so we will move on to new business. There will be a public hearing. So then we will need a motion to postpone. I'll need to read into the record. The Platting Board meets each month for the first and third Wednesday except for holidays as a regular meeting. If the Platting Board fails to complete its agenda for its regular meetings, the Board carries over the remainder of the agenda to the following meeting. The procedure by which the public may speak to the Platting Board at the meeting is 1. After staff presentation has completed on public hearing items, the chair will ask for public testimony on the issue. 2. Persons who wish to testify will follow the time limits established on the Commission's Rules of Procedure. A. Petitioners, including all of his or her representatives, will have 10 minutes. Part of this time may be reserved for rebuttal. Item B, representatives of groups, community councils, PTAs, etc., they will have 5 minutes. Individuals will have 3 minutes. When your testimony is complete, you may be asked questions by the board. You may only testify once on any issue unless questioned by the board. Item 4, any party of interest wishing to appeal shall first file with the planning director within 7 days of the board's decision made on the record, a written notice of intent to appeal, and in accordance with AMC 21.03.050A4A. Following approval of the written findings of fact and decision, any party of interest may, within 20 days, file an appeal by filing a notice of appeal and paying the appeal fee and deposit in accordance with Section 21.03050. The notice of appeal must be filed with the planning director on a form prescribed by the municipality. The appellant is not the applicant. The appellant's notice of appeal shall be proof of service on the applicant. Thank you. With that, we can move on to the first case. The first case we have is S-12-706, and there's a request to postpone this. I'll need a motion to postpone. It has been moved by Mr. Ryan Mormon and seconded by Mr. Sam Laffey. Mr. Mormon, please state your motion.
I motion to postpone case S-12706 to March 1st, 2023, meeting to follow the petitioner time to resolve traffic and private development issues.
Great. Would you like to speak to your motion, please?
No.
Fair enough. Okay, please vote.
Mr. Young?
Yeah. I couldn't hear very well, I'm sorry.
That's all right. It was to
This is
postpone
actually-
it until March 1st.
Yeah. In favor.
Excellent. That motion passes. Our next case is S-1278. We would like to hear from staff on their presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So this is a request, case S-12708, to modify plat notes number 3 and 4 from plat 2000-124, Turnigan View Park Phase 2 subdivision. Plat note number 3 reads, direct vehicular access to DeArmond Road, Donald Street, or Matthews Drive is prohibited from any lot or tract. Plat note modification request is no direct access to DeArmond Road from lots 10, 32, and 33. Access to Donald Street from lots 2 to 6 will require Donald Street to be constructed to current municipal standards. Plat note number 4 reads as follows. Existing vegetation in the 15-foot buffer landscape easements is not to be disturbed except to remove dead vegetation and debris. In the event that vegetation is disturbed or removed, the disturbed area shall be replanted to meet the standards of AMC 2145-125C2. Plat note modification request is existing vegetation in the 15-foot buffer landscape easement is not to be disturbed except to remove dead vegetation, debris, and where access is allowed. So the petitioner is requesting the plat note modification to allow for secondary driveway access to a parking pad. Staff's analysis in the criteria of 2103-200G9, staff finds that condition A has been met. At the time plat 2000-124 was recorded, direct vehicular access to Donald Street was restricted by the plat notes and no improvements were required. The plat created 22 lots in the Turnigan View Park Phase 2 subdivision. Currently all lots are developed and access provided to Arboretum Street. A local road is classified in the official streets and highways plan. That connects down to DeArmond Road, which is a minor arterial as classified in the OSH&P. Donald Street is classified as a local road with a right-of-way width of 30 feet, with less than 2,000 average daily traffic trips. Donald Street is currently constructed to limited access road standards. It currently has approximately a 16-foot wide chip seal surface from DeArmond Road to the northern property line of Lot 14 of DeArmond Subdivision Number 2. The Turnigan View Park subdivision has been constructed with single-family homes that access Arboretum Street, which is a 30-foot wide paved surface with curbs and sidewalks. The petitioners have requested to modify the plat notes to allow for a secondary ancillary access to the backyards of their properties, as the petition site has frontage on both Donald Street and Arboretum Street. The 15-foot landscaper buffer easement remains and is modified to allow for that portion of a driveway to be constructed. Granting the modification of the plat notes will allow lots 7 to 10 to potentially obtain a driveway through an approved right-of-way permit, which requires paving of the driveway from the edge of the developed travelway onto property. Access from lots 2 through 6 will be required to improve Donald Street to municipal standards from DeArmond Road to the proposed lot where the driveway's request is. This establishes that access from undeveloped right-of-way will require construction to municipal standards. The original plat note limited access as improvements weren't required to Donald Street at that time. So while the conditions that require the plat notes have not been substantially changed, the traffic department, private development, and right-of-way departments have no objection to allowing secondary access for the lots that currently access Arboretum Street. Lots 2 through 6 abut the unimproved portion of Donald Street. If the lots wish to apply for a driveway permit for access, that petitioner will be required to improve Donald Street up to municipal standards. This negates the original need of the plat note, as full road improvements would then at that point be constructed. Staff finds Condition B has been met. The right-of-way, private development, traffic, and State of Alaska Department of Transportation and Public Facilities have no objection to the plat note modifications, indicating that they do not anticipate any existing or future impacts as a result. Neighboring property owners will still retain their full rights to develop, maintain, and utilize their property in a lawful manner. Additionally, there does not appear to be any negative impact to vehicular traffic flow because of this request. There is currently one lot that accesses Donald Street, and any future requests for the remaining lots along the undeveloped portion of the right-of-way will require the improvements to current municipal standards, which would negate any impacts associated with increased traffic. So the modification of the 15-foot buffer landscape easement will allow for a driveway permit to access across that portion of the easement. However, the buffer easement remains per the plat and is still subject to the buffer landscape standards. With that, staff recommends a condition of approval that any areas in the easement outside of the permitted driveway permit area be planted with the requirements of the buffer landscape standard. Staff finds C has been met. If the plat note modification is approved, Plat 2001-24 will continue to comply with all applicable subdivision regulations, as well as the approval criteria of AMC 2103-200C9. All lots within the subdivision will continue to meet the dimensional and lot design standards within the table of dimensional standards for residential districts. And based on that recommendation from Traffic Engineering, Alaska Department of Transportation, Private Development, and Right-of-Way Department, Planning has no objection to the request to amend the plat notes on Plat 2001-24. So Department recommends approval subject to the conditions found on page 7. It's A 1 through 4. However, I feel staff would like to make one minor change. There's, just to clarify confusion, 2A, no direct vehicular access to DeArmond Road from lots 10, 32, and 33. No direct access from lots 2 through 6 to Donald Street until such time Donald Street is improved to current municipal standards from DeArmond Road to full frontage of the individual lot applying for the driveway access. That's the change there. Full front, so it would say from DeArmond Road to full frontage of the individual lot applying for driveway access. And the reason behind that is it's just the orderly expansion of development. As we look at, it applies with sewer, water, and roads. It's kind of, the person that does the improvements, let's say lot 6 comes in, they're gonna have to improve Donald Street to their full lot frontage, and then the next person comes and picks it up and expands from there. And that's the reason. It's just more clarifying of that modification note. And with that being said, I can answer any questions, and a member of the traffic department is here as well tonight.
Could you repeat the modification to 2A one more time slowly, please?
Yes, Mr. Chair. So we're going to strike the proposed driveway of 2A, so it'll just read, no direct access from lots 2 through 6 to Donald Street until such time Donald Street is improved to current municipal standards from DeArmond Road to full frontage of the individual lot applying for driveway access. So the theory behind all that is lots 2 through 6, if we turn to page 10 of the staff packet, it's not a good, it's an aerial, it's not in color, but you can see there that Donald Street ends and that section all the way to the north, which tees into Matthews Drive, but all that section there is unimproved. So those lots, the lots that front that are 2 through 6. And if they were to apply for a driveway access permit, they would be required to improve Donald Street to municipal standard, as well as the section of Donald Street, the extra portion of that, which would bring it up to municipal standards.
Thank you. Do we have any questions of staff? Mr. Gould?
Has any portion of Donald Street been improved so far?
Through the chair, Mr. Gould, as far as currently now, no, but Donald Street has been improved in the past. I have a note from private development, and they do say Donald Street is currently being maintained by street maintenance. It is chip sealed. There was some public comment. I think someone might have said 15 feet. The LAR standards, which is the limited access roads and public right-of-way, it's policy AG.56. That states that a limited access road does not need to be chip sealed. It can be surfaced with gravel or wrap. So if there's 15 feet of chip seal and there's still 16, 17, 18 feet of drivable surface, that still meets the standard of the LAR road. And that's what's currently out there. So over the years, because it is maintained by the municipality, it has been improved. And they did go out there and chip seal, which is above the minimum standard.
I do have a question. Could you state the ramifications for lots 7, 8, 9, and 10?
Okay, so if we take a look at page 10 again in the staff report, 7, 8, 9, and 10 are within the dashed kind of lines of the petition sites. The ramifications for them are they would have to apply for a driveway permit with the municipality, and then that would include whatever the driveway permit entails. And I believe, as we can kind of see, the current improved right-of-way is to the left or to the west side of that 30 feet of right-of-way. So they're going to have to pave from the edge of that chip seal, improved air surface over onto their property. And then I believe the driveway permit requires them to pave onto their property as well. And they're limited in their width. However, if you've been out there, you'll notice, so 7 is the one at the very north, 8, 9, and 10. 8 is questionable, 9 and 10 appear to be pretty steep, and I don't even know if you could you'd be able to, when you apply for your driveway permit, if they would even be able to meet the minimum driveway grade percentage, which Randy is 10%? 12%. So they would have to meet that, and that may not be possible without a whole bunch of excavating and walls on site. Does that answer your question, Mr. Porter?
It does, thank you. Do we have any other questions for staff from the board? Okay. So we will have the presentation from the petitioner. At this time, we'd like a presentation from the petitioner to come forward. State your name and for the record. You'll need to turn on the mic. It's the green button.
Here.
Great. And if you could state your name and spell your last name, please.
Okay. My name is Tim Votis, Vottis. I am petitioner and petitioner representative.
Excellent. Thank you. You'll have 10 minutes.
Okay. Can you hear me okay? Everybody good? Thank you for your time in hearing my plat note modification application. We agree with the staff recommendations to approve the modifications to the aforementioned plat notes 2000-124, notes 3 and 4. For background, we bought the house at 13832 Arboretum in June of 2018. At the time of purchase, a parking pad existed in the backyard abutting Donald Street. Unaware of any plat notes, we just went on using it. The parking pad is used as secondary access and for overflow parking when our kids are home from college. Incidentally, this parking pad provides a convenient turnaround for the very narrow dead end of Donald Street. We have seen many municipal, state, commercial, and private vehicles turn around in our parking pad, including snow plows and graders, along with garbage, septic, FedEx, and UPS trucks. We believe that our parking pad provides a benefit to the community, and asking us to remove it would do more harm than good. In the MOA report, it mentioned several times that I was in error in regarding when the parking pad was installed. As I stated in my application, the parking pad existed when I purchased the property in 2018. I checked with the previous homeowners, and the parking pad was there when they purchased the house in 2004. We assume it was put in by the original owner, but aren't sure. I believe the misconception that we installed it after 2015 comes from a dirt pad being difficult to see in aerial views. When we bought the house, we improved the pad by adding a small amount of gravel, making it much more visible in aerial photos. So in essence, we are asking for the right to keep something in place that has been there 20 years or more. In an event to reconcile the vegetative barrier situation, we have planted 13 lilac trees, 10 boxwood shrubs, and many raspberry and blueberry plants in the easement. The vegetation added is much more fire resistant than the dry grass and beetle-killed spruce previously there. To this point, we have gotten support from our Arboretum neighbors as well as the Huffman O'Malley Community Council. It is our understanding that we have satisfied the buffer landscaping standard per Mr. Bradley Larson of Right Away, with the exception of our parking pad area. In conclusion, we agree with the staff analysis that the criteria listed in 21.03.200G.9 have been met and addressed. We ask that this board grant our request and modify plat notes 3 and 4 to the department recommendations A.2.A and A.2.B. If granted, we will gladly comply with the requirements associated with our proposal, specifically completing a right-of-way permit application as cited in recommendation A3. Regarding recommendation A4, as stated above, we believe we have already settled the landscaping issue to municipality satisfaction. Thank you. I would like to reserve the remainder of my time for rebuttal and let you know that I do have additional photos available if necessary.
Excellent. Thank you, Mr. Bottas. Take testimony? Oh. Are there any questions from the board to Mr. Bottas? No questions for you. Thank you so much. At this time, we will take public testimony. If anybody'd like to come forward. Good evening. Your mic is on. Go ahead and let us know if you're a representative of a group or an individual, and state your last name and spell the last name, please.
I'm an individual.
Thank you.
My name is Brian Hakkinen, Hakkinen.
Great. You'll have 3 minutes. Please tell us what you'd like us to hear.
My name is Brian Hakkinen. I own lots 13 and 14, the Armin subdivision, which front on Donald Street. On July 1, 2022, a complaint was filed against the owner of Lot 7, Turnagain View Park, for violations of Plat Notes 3 and 4. This became Service Request 215047. That was day one for this case. On July 26, 2022, Bradley Larson from Zoning Enforcement contacted Tim Votis and started assisting him in getting the plat notes removed. This turned out to be a 7-month process, and that brings us to tonight. It should be noted that he had already violated plat notes 3 and 4. He removed all the trees and vegetation in the landscape buffer, removed all the trees and vegetation on Donald Street right of way from his property line to Donald Street. He put in an illegal substandard driveway connecting to Donald Street with no municipal driveway permit. Tim Votis now claims the driveway he constructed as his property, even though it is entirely on public right-of-way. He now states that modifying Plat Notes 3 and 4 to comply with all of his violations on Plat 3 and 4 is warranted because it serves the community. There is one word that describes Tim Votis' statement. That word is chutzpah. Tim Votis states that it's clear to him that the conditions that required the plat notes on the original plat have changed. For some reason, he does not explain how they changed. That is because there have been no changes in the last 20 years. Even senior planner Sean Odell states there have been no changes. This is an important criteria for plat note removal or modification. How can these two parties arbitrarily disregard it? 23 years ago, the developers of Turnagain View Park, the Municipality of Anchorage Planning Department, and the residents of the Armin subdivision all agreed to these plat notes, and they have worked very well. Now we have on one side Tim Votis and the Municipality of Anchorage Planning Department in favor of plat notes modification, and the other side, all the residents in the Armin subdivision unanimously against it. Planning and zoning decisions for the good of everyone cannot be made with neighborhoods split like this. Changes to plat notes cannot be made to simply protect and hold harmless one individual for his plat note violations from punitive actions by zoning enforcement. Please vote against modifications of plat notes 3 and 4.
Thank you, Mr. Hakkinen. Do we have questions of Mr. Hakkinen? Go ahead, Sam.
Thank you, Mr. Hakkinen. How long have you lived at your current residence?
I guess 40 years.
And how often did you use Donaldson Road?
I can't hear you.
How often did you use Donaldson Road?
Daily, I guess.
Okay. Did you ever notice a driveway prior to 2018?
I don't know the dates, I guess. I don't know. Yeah, there was an illegal driveway appeared. I always had these other violations, and I always assumed that the municipality would notice this and take action, but they never did. So, yeah, that's how this started.
Thank you very much. No further questions.
Anybody else? Any on the planning board have questions for Mr. Hakkinen?
Thank you for your testimony. In your mind, how is this affecting you?
I can't really hear.
And so I thank you very much for your testimony. How is this affecting you and your property?
What was the question?
How are you being affected? Can you explain to me the, like, the adversity that you faced?
Well, because, the reason this started was because of reckless driving, of people coming in and out of Otis driveway. I've almost smashed into my car several times. My wife almost got run over. The road is only like 14 feet wide, as we know.
Sure.
And reckless driving, that's what started it. And that's just with one driveway. Now could put as many as 9, or maybe not. But that's what started it, just reckless driving. And it's a violation. He's parked in the right-of-way. And that forces the snow removal people to push all the snow from Donald Street onto my property because he's got a driveway there. They don't want any snow over that direction. So, and also it ruins the trees. Every driveway takes out a lot of trees.
Mm-hmm. Are these vehicles or people coming through your private property, or are they staying on the road?
Pardon me?
Are they entering your private property, or are they just using the road for easement or access?
Turning into my property?
Yeah.
Oh, occasionally, yeah.
Okay.
If I don't have a vehicle there, I'm sure they do. Yeah. You know, to turn around, you mean, or?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. You know, I mean, yeah, it is a narrow street, but, you know, legally, we're the only ones to have a driveway there. There shouldn't be anybody coming up there, except us.
Would the improvement affect your view?
What?
Would the improvement affect the view that you have in your home? Or would you hear increased street? I'm trying to understand why this is an issue. I understand
I have a hard
in
time
theory why it is.
getting it, I guess.
Well, first of all, I have to say that I think I have to abstain anyway because I own a home in this neighborhood. And I may know people that are in the audience, not on a personal basis so much as I have affiliations in other aspects. So I don't know how that gets disclosed.
Okay. Yeah, so at that point. Oh, yes. Thank you. All right. We have a process for this.
Sorry.
No problem. So at this point, we would ask if you have a conflict of interest, if you have, in terms of abstaining or being directed not to be a part of the vote. Does the member have a substantial financial interest or substantial private interest in the matter now before the body? And is that interest of a substantial part of the present action, one that varies directly and substantially with the outcome, immediate and known or conjectural, inconclusive, and dependent on factors beyond the body's action, a significant monetary interest, or generally possessed by a large group or only by the individual? If there is an interest, is it by a large group or an individual? Do you have a large interest? Then specify that limited interest as a general nature. So what is your interest, your conflict of interest in this case?
I don't know if it is. I own a home in this neighborhood, and I know a few people in the audience through religious affiliation, but not like a personal relationship.
In your view, do you have a conflict of interest?
I don't think so. None of this directly affects will not have any economic effect, positive or negative for me. I think when you read that card, I've read that similar disclosure, and I believe I can say no to all of it.
Through the chair, Ms. Pennington, do you have any specific knowledge of this project? Do you have any financial or personal interest in this matter?
No.
So you can remain impartial.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. We will need to do a vote on asking her to participate.
Great. So at this point, we would take a vote of the board to direct Ms. Pennington to participate in this case, so that we all agree that that she doesn't have a conflict of interest.
Mr. Chair, I move...
Oh, wait.
We're
ahead and
we're getting back to you in it.
Yeah, if you could wait just another minute, and let's see what happens. Great. May I have a motion, please?
So move.
Mr. Laffey, would you state your motion, please?
Yes. The motion is to move to allow Board Member Brandy Pennington to participate in case number S12708.
Thank you. Can we have a vote, please? Oh, I'm sorry. Would you like to speak to your motion, please?
No.
Mr. Mormon, would you like to speak to your second?
No, thank you.
So I just have one more question for him.
Would you like to speak to the motion?
Yeah, well, I don't know if it's appropriate. Can I just turn this off for a minute?
It's all on the record. Go ahead and...
Okay, I'm pretty plain to speech, like I don't have any fancy words, so I'm just going to be straight with you, okay?
Oh, wait. So we're just requesting if you want to speak to the motion.
Well, I just didn't...
Whether we're gonna direct
okay.
you to participate or not.
Rockin'. Thanks. Nope. Nothing to say.
Okay. I would like to speak to the motion then. We have a vote before us where Ms. Pennington has indicated that she does not have a conflict of interest, financial or personal. She does live in the neighborhood, but that is of general in nature. So I intend to support this motion to direct her to participate in this discussion and vote. Please vote.
For clarity, I do not live in the neighborhood. I own a home in that
All
neighborhood.
right. She owns a home.
I will abstain.
Oh, then
Mr. Young?
I don't have the actual vote in front of me. To be clear, I do not believe there's a conflict of interest with Brandy. I vote in favor of her being able to participate.
Thank you.
So Brandy, you would abstain. Okay. Excellent. The vote has passed, so we will move forward with Brandy voting as part of the group. All right. Are there any other questions to Mr. Hakkinen from the board? Oh. Brandy, could you turn off your mic? Thank you. Mr. Gould.
I'd like to follow up on what Brandy has been saying, how this affects you. And more to the point, how would this affect you if this went forward and the Donald Street was improved and brought up to current standards and there were other driveways that went onto Donald Street? What effect would that have on you?
Could you turn your mic on, please? Press the green button. Good job. Thank you.
They're really racing ahead. That you're talking about big improvements. That was the next phase, or this was just for 4 driveways, and now you're talking about improving Donald Street to the full 30-foot right-of-way, I guess, paved and everything. I don't know. That was never. That's out there a ways as far as I can see. Right now, the Donald Street is just a 16-foot chip seal road that in the winter narrows down to 10 feet, and that's all that this would do. Add 4 driveways to this, or maybe only one driveway, from what this gentleman said. One driveway, I guess, but which doesn't seem fair either. There's supposedly 4, but he says only 4 can legally be, or only 1 can be legally put in. But no, I don't know. To turn that into a 30-foot street, take down all the trees, it would just destroy the rural part of the old subdivision. I don't know why anybody would want to do that when there's no need to.
Ms. Pennington also has another question for you. Oh, you need to turn your mic on.
I have a question for him and then one for staff. So when does that happen?
I guess you could ask us. Go ahead and direct your question to him first, and then after that, we'll ask staff.
Sir, I appreciate your time, and I realize this is a really stressful situation. I went through like 18 months of trying to finish one of the platting board memos, so I understand how much like emotion and goes into this process. I don't know what the outcome will be for you and or the other party, but in the event that it does not err in your favor, is there something that you could still walk away with a win? So I guess what I'm trying to say is, if it doesn't err in your favor, is there something that the neighbors can do to make this still a positive thing for you? Or give some positive outcome from it?
Go ahead and turn your mic on, please.
I see nothing positive, just adding a driveway, more traffic where it's not needed, and I don't know, I can't imagine how it could work out any better. That it's just a negative thing. It's just to imagine. I don't know, how wide are these driveways? 10 foot, 20 foot? I don't know. Anyway, 20-foot driveway, 14 feet swath through the Donald Street right-of-way trees, and then 20-foot swath through the vegetative barrier to then a parking spot for one person. I don't know, is that, I just can't see anything positive in it. There's nothing that can be done. It was done right 20 years ago. I guess if you've read all those comments and everything, you understand how we came up with all this, and then it's just being thrown away. Just why? I mean, it was done right. There's no reason to do this now, and it basically only benefits one individual, right? The other driveways may not even be legally to be put in. The other three, and then the others past Donald Street, are in such a bad terrain, they'll undoubtedly never get put in. It probably costs, I would guess, $500,000 at least to extend Donald Street from the Armand Road, because the approach is all got to be redone. It's all got to be cut into the embankment. Drainage has to be put in, retaining walls. It's just all unnecessary for one driveway, or for additional driveways too, if you wanted to widen it out to 30 feet. And then you get a lot of drive-by increased traffic for no reason. Right now, I'm the only one that really should be driving in there. And then if the person down the street develops their land, then they would drive in there. There's also a driveway off to the old Armand house. But I just don't see anything. There's nothing positive. There's no alternative that I can see.
Are you a privately maintained street? Are you with, is it municipally?
It's Muni.
Muni.
That's been established. Thank you, Mr. Hakkinen. Just wait for a minute. You had a question of staff.
Yeah. Okay. Staff.
Through the chair, Ms. Pennington, go ahead.
Through the chair.
Go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
Thanks. So do you have to do a road improvement to current standard, or could you treat it like an alley access? Because those are two different standards.
It depends on which lot you're talking about. For lots 2 through 6, we've made the determination that at that point, any type of driveway access permit would require full improvements. Now, for the other lots, they're just going to need to get a driveway permit and access the existing improved public right-of-way.
Okay. So the two that you're mentioning that would require the full improvement?
It's lots 2 through 6,
And
yeah.
are they petitioning?
No, they're not part of, well, they are. Yes, they're all all along that Donald Street is part of this action.
Well, I think it's one thing to say we want to be a part of an action. It's another thing to ask for a permit and then require all the improvements.
It's the conditions that we're placing on the approval modification of the plat note. It will require them because it's unimproved right away. So if they come in, and that's, that's standard with any type of road development or any type of access. It's just, that's going to be the orderly expansion of development, is they're going to have to improve that. Oftentimes we talk about this in platting, and we talk about the rational nexus and kind of the threshold there where it is going to require what type of improvements, and all the agencies have determined that if that lot 2 through 6 want access, that's going to trigger the fact that they're going to have to do full street improvements.
Lots 2 through 6 will be responsible for the financial burden of the street improvement.
Yes, anyone that wants access to that. Yep.
Pay attention to which ones are 2 through 6, which are on the north side of this discussion.
This is my first meeting. I'm just getting
I
started.
understand. I
Yeah.
understand.
To clarify, that lots 2 through 6 are the right-of-way, the 30 feet of right-of-way. There's no road there. It's all just trees, and as has been explained, yeah. So that's why we're placing that on there.
So like when you do utility extensions, there's like this remuneration process where if you extend the utility line and then someone connects within a certain period of time, they have to pay a portion of it back? Would it be similar for the road?
That would not be similar for the road, no.
Okay.
No.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Pennington, and thank you, staff. Do we have any other questions of Mr. Hakkinen? I do have a question. In all fairness, has that driveway existed for 2018? The driveway to lot 6, I believe. 7, to lot 7. Has that driveway existed before, even in 2004?
No, I don't think so. No, I don't remember seeing it. I mean, like I say, this whole thing got clear cut. Nothing left. Every tree gone, and then the driveway. I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of violations. Do you understand?
No, I understand. I just, that was my question. But anyway, thank you. Is there anybody else to testify? Oh, so if you turn on the mic and then state your name, spell your last name, please.
Excellent. Glasses would be good too. All right. Hello, and thank you for the opportunity to speak with you this evening.
Could you state your name and spell your last name?
Sorry. Leslie Murray, Murray.
And are you an individual or a representative of a group?
I'm a representative for the DeArmond Homeowners Association.
Okay, great. You'll have 5 minutes.
Thank you. Hello, and thank you for the opportunity to speak with you this evening. My name is Leslie Murray. I'm the president for the DeArmond Homeowners Association, which provides service for the DeArmond 2 subdivision. My husband and I also own property in the subdivision, Block 2, Lot 2, where we've lived since 1998. Our subdivision is zoned R6 and sits due west of the petitioner's subdivision, which is zoned R1A SL. The Municipality of Anchorage's zoning regulations afford our property owners with physical and visual separation from the neighboring subdivision to the east and helps maintain the rural nature of our subdivision, which is important to all of us. We are concerned that the changes requested by the petitioner will increase traffic to Donald Street and create safety hazards on a roadway that provides the only access to the properties the road was constructed to serve. Arboretum Street was designed to serve the R1A SL subdivision to our east and provides adequate access to each of the properties noted in the petition while meeting the Municipality of Anchorage's zoning regulations for a residential subdivision. We request that the Municipality of Anchorage Platting Board reject Plat Note 3 and 4 modification and deletions identified by the petitioner in case S12708. They do not meet the approved criteria under AMC 2103-210G9. I have sent a more detailed testimony to the Planning Department for the Municipality of Anchorage, and it is now part of the case record. I've attached a copy of that more detailed testimony to this oral testimony for your convenience. Please include me in any mailings that concern the DeArmond 2 subdivision in the future, and thank you for your attention. We certainly appreciate all of your full consideration.
Excellent. Thank you, Ms. Murray. Do we have any questions of Ms. Murray?
Yes, through the chair, Ms. Marie. Was there a vote taken at the community council for this?
No, and actually a good point to mention. The reason being that all of our property owners didn't receive the hearing notice. In fact, I was only made aware of it a couple of weeks ago myself by one of our property owners, and she took a picture of it with her phone and then texted it to me. I couldn't read it very well, so I did then contact Sean for more information, and he connected me up also with staff notes and the rest of the packet of information. So unfortunately, perhaps the community most affected by this whole petition, many of us, I would say most of us, having contacted as many people as I could, didn't know anything about it. And the reason why this is kind of a critical thing, besides the fact that we are zoned rural, is that should this move forward and then continue up so that Donald's is pushed through to Lot 2 over on Arboretum, as has been mentioned by this group, there is certainly going to be a connection with Matthews Drive, and I want to highlight why that would be an issue for us as a small community. Because we're a rural community, we have a safety that is not felt necessarily in communities with through traffic. And we have lots of young families, lots of children, people with pets, etc. So we're concerned that this would create safety hazards that go beyond just the original proposal to go up to the dead end at the end of Donald's. And just to clarify for you guys, since I've been there since 1998, the top of that dead end has been used as a turnaround by municipality vehicles, dump trucks, snow plows, etc. So what is in the right-of-way that is now being used as a parking pad was the turnaround for the vehicles that would come up to do service work on that road, as well as the people that live at the end of the road. So it's been that way for a long time. It just hasn't had more kind of attention as he was able to give it when he brought it up to whatever standard it's at now.
Any other questions from the board? Thank you, Ms. Murray.
Thank you, I appreciate it. And do you want my comments, or?
Have they been entered?
The detail, yes.
We have them in the
This
packet.
page not. Okay,
Oh.
you've got that part. All righty, thank you very much.
Thank you for your time.
You bet.
Please come forward, state your name, and spell your last name, please.
Jared Hakkinen, Hakkinen.
Thank you, Jared. As an individual or a group?
Individual.
You'll have 3 minutes.
I ask you to oppose the requested change of Platts Notes 3 and 4. There are a few things we can agree on. There's been no change in the Turnagain View or the Donald Street neighborhood except for the aforementioned driveway and where they extended their yard. So their driveway and their yard goes into Donald Street right-of-way. We can agree that the neighborhoods are zoned completely different, totally different identities. We can agree that there's been no identified benefit for the Donald Street community to the change of plat notes. They have not documented any need to change the plat notes. Land use and traffic have not addressed the negative impact of changing the plat notes. Land use and traffic refuse to do a site meet, and it's questionable whether they really understand what Donald Street looks like. It doesn't sound like they really put boots on the ground. A couple of years ago, Turnagain View asked for a 12-foot easement that they would get off of Donald Street. In return, they would not access Donald Street. Now they're here asking for access to Donald Street. The traffic report that you see is flawed. Traffic has confirmed that they work with the petitioner on the language and the content of the petitioner's request. The homeowners told traffic that they use the driveways occasionally. Traffic took that, and their entire report is based off of that. The Turnagain View neighbors use their driveway all the time. They're actually using it today. Constant traffic, constant use. Traffic did not assume maximum use. To minimize the use of Donald Street by Turnagain View is exactly the kind of problem that are plaguing Anchorage neighborhoods: congestion, accidents, limited access, road maintenance issues, enforcement issues. You cannot access Donald Street when another vehicle is pulling out from DeArmond Road. It's impossible for two vehicles to pass. Anyone walking on Donald Street cannot get out of the way of those speeding cars that are racing up and down Donald Street from the Turnagain View driveway. Maintenance pushes all the snow onto our land. None of this is mentioned in the traffic report. The land use report also uses that term landscape barrier. There's not a real barrier if you're going to have driveways and yard. In reality, you're eliminating all barriers, when in fact there's huge benefits to barriers, especially between neighborhoods. Also, land use is overly reliant on enforcement. Land use keeps saying enforcement is going to do this, enforcement is going to do that, whereas we can all agree enforcement hasn't done anything since 2018 forward. If you design a road with natural barriers, as it stands now, you don't need enforcement because you have those natural barriers separating neighborhoods. Finally, there's the most beautiful 100-year-old iconic birch tree in the Donald Street right-of-way. It has survived homesteading, earthquakes, development, and time. This commission allowing this plat language to change would assure the destruction of this magnificent tree. I ask the commission to deny the request to change the plat notes for the good of the community. Thank you.
Sorry, thank you. Very well done. You hit exactly 3 minutes. Do we have any questions from the board? Ms. Pennington? Go ahead and turn your mic on.
Am I able to direct questions to the gentleman or just to you?
Yes, you may
Okay.
ask the question of the,
Thanks.
yes. Sorry.
Through the chair, you mentioned that Turnagain View Estates received or asked for an easement roughly 12 years ago.
No, I apologize. We're not sure the date. A couple of years ago, there was an agreement that they got 12 foot of Donald Street. So Donald Street originally was like 40 foot, and now it's 30 foot. And part of that agreement was that they would not have access to Donald Street in exchange for that current landscape. That's our understanding. In talking to traffic, they didn't know why that language was in there. Traffic was like, I don't want to speak for him, they're not here, but he was like, I don't care, we're just going to change it, that we want them to have driveways. But that was the reason for there not being access. That was the reason for there not being, that language was specific. It was like an exchange. You can have this land, you can't have access to Donald Street.
So
That's our
Donald,
understanding of the history of why that language is in there now.
some of this may just be redundant, but this is very important. This is a very important scenario. And so I might have questions that you maybe have already answered or addressed in this very lengthy package that everyone presented. So my understanding is Donald Street was 40 feet, now it's 30, but in reality, you're driving on 10 feet.
In reality, we're driving on about 8 foot right now because there's,
Snow.
if you put boots on the ground, because I asked land use and traffic to do a site meet and they both refused. Donald Street is really, really narrow, and I know aerial photos, and he says officially it's 16 foot of chip seal. In reality, you know, it's about 8 foot right now, given the branches, the trees, and the snow. So the usable 8 foot right now.
So potential road improvements would take away what from your property?
Well, because Donald Street, it's not running down the center. Donald Street runs totally along our private property, so there is no road improvement. From the lots from DeArmond Road to the end of the chip seal, it's going to be driveways, yard, driveways, yard, driveways, yard, and you're still going to have this narrow little 8 foot road, and that's our only access to our house. So in reality, if you approve the language and they put those 4 driveways in from DeArmond to the end of the chip seal, there is no improvement to the road. It makes it worse because you have these driveways and you have one there now in constant use, and all of us have to share tonight an 8 foot swath because that's all there is. So there is no road improvement given this current. The only road improvement happens is if the Turnagain View homeowners, you know, in the undeveloped section, they have to improve the road. There is no road improvement for the lots from DeArmond to the end of the chip seal. It just makes it worse.
I see. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions to Mr. Hockanen? Mr. Laffey? Oh, wait, let's wait. Mr. Laffey.
Mr. Hecken, do you live at on Donaldson Street?
I reside at 3812 Matthews Drive, which our primary access is Matthews Drive, and then there's no access there from Donald's. And then my family owns the house on Donald Street, so that's our primary and only access. So I spend a lot of time on Donald Street and in that one house that is at the end of the chip seal that accesses it. So we're there all the time.
Could you lift your mic a little
geez.
closer to you?
Can you hear me all right, by the way?
I'm sorry?
Can you hear me all right? Can you hear me?
Yes, I'm sorry.
No worries. How long have you lived in that neighborhood?
Well, my grandparents homesteaded it. My parents built the house themselves on Matthews Street probably when we were 10 years old. They actually built the house on Donald Street when they were 20, and then they just got it back a few years ago. So I would say probably since I was 10 years, not officially there living, but we've had it since I was 10 years old.
Okay, great. But, okay, so before 2018, was there a driveway there?
I mean, and I think that's the hard part about it because it's, we're all having to define terms in the real world and then based off of code and aerial surveys and all that. Like officially, there's no driveway now because if you look at a plat, there's no driveway there. But if you walk there, you're going to see this huge driveway and it's all cleared out. You know what I mean? So we're doing semantics. But but really, 2018, they improved it to the point where they took their yard and took over half of Donald Street and they put in the gravel and the pad and everything. So I would contend in 2018, the official driveway was put in. Whether there's like a path to the back, some people will pull up to behind their house and there might be a little bit of a developed walking path through the woods. We see that all the time and all over the hillside. But I would contend that the official driveway as it looks now, 2018 forward.
Okay, I guess that leads to another question then. Were people using the walking path or whatever might have been behind this particular lot before 2018? Were people parking behind there?
No, I wouldn't say park. I would say, it would be so rare you couldn't even say, maybe so occasionally you wouldn't even be able to count it, whereas now it's used constantly every day. People are parked there, drivers. I mean, it's exponentially, I mean, it's used as a primary, I know is a legal term, but if you use it as a usage term, in our view, that's their primary driveway from 2018 forward. Previous, we didn't really notice that much.
Okay, and so I actually, you made a statement that's important, and I want to clarify. Are you asserting that the current owner of the property is encroaching on the city's right-of-way on Donaldson Street, using the 7.5-foot half that they would have and the city maintains as a road as part of their driveway?
Well, no, not the part that the city maintains. If you work your way, there's our house, there's our driveway, our vehicle is totally on our private property, then you have the boundary, then you have the chip seal, then you have, I mean, it's usable about it's officially 15-foot chip seal, but 14, 15, it varies, and then their driveway starts, and then their yard starts.
But the driveway starts after the chip seal?
Correct, yes.
Thank you very much. I have no
I
further
apologize
questions.
if I miscommunicated
Oh, no,
that.
I know.
Yeah.
That's why I wanted to clarify. It's important. Thank you, sir.
Any other questions of Mr. Hawkinen? Thank you so much for your testimony. Do we have anybody else to testify? Please come forward, state your name, spell your last name.
Hello, my name is Moria Bader. Last name is spelled B-A-D-E-R.
Are you a representative of a group or an individual?
Individual.
And do you live on a lot? Could you tell us which lot you
I
live
do
on?
live on lot 7.
Ah.
I do.
Please tell us your testimony.
Well, I want to start out with there seems to be a lot of confusion over when this parking pad was there. And as Ms. Murray stated in her testimony, that it's been there since 1998, and she stated that people have been using this dirt parking pad as a place to turn around at the end of this dead-end street. If necessary, we can get statements from the people that we bought the house from, and they routinely parked boats, four-wheelers, and things like that in their backyard using that access point to get in there. So we by no means put in this driveway. We did eventually put in a couple 5-gallon buckets worth of gravel, which, you know, we stated in our original thing that that's why it didn't look obvious in the past, and now it does look obvious.
Could I stop you for just 1 minute? Since you live on lot 7, you're with the petitioner, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so we could save some of this for the rebuttal. Otherwise, you're going to run out of time. Oh, and
I don't get my own 3 minutes?
unfortunately, it's coming off of the petitioner's time at this
Oh,
point.
I didn't understand that. I thought I got my own 3 minutes as an individual person.
Because you are the petitioner, as part of the petitioner's group, because you live on the lot.
Okay, well, I
does
don't want
come out
to
of
take
their
away
time.
from our rebuttal time, so I
Understood.
will
Thank you
step
so
back.
much.
Thank you.
If anybody else would like to testify, please come forward.
Point of information. Zach on the phone.
Go ahead, Mr. Young.
It's a little bit difficult to discern between just hearing the phone conversation and looking at the staff analysis that I have here. What I'm having difficulty understanding is whether or not having this plat note removed will be able to address the serious problem that is occurring on Donald Street, which is that it's not wide enough. Is there a situation or a resolution that we can come to here that we are able to allow the street to be widened while still removing this plat note? Because it seems as though the actual driveway and the RV / toy parking pad is not what's causing this street not to be wide enough, but the street not being wide enough is it. And I'm just trying to ascertain.
Sure. As a planning board member, we will be putting forward motions after we hear all of the public testimony. And as the planning board, we will decide on each motion, voted up, voted down, and that's where that would be the appropriate place for that discussion.
Noted. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you so much. We have somebody to testify. Could you state your name, please, and let us know if you're a member of a group or an individual?
Yeah, I'm an individual.
Great. Could you speak forward, maybe move the
bet.
mic up to you? And
Absolutely.
Excellent. And could you state your name and spell your last name, please?
Yeah, my name is Stan Benyon. Last name is Bennion.
And great. For clarification, could you tell us if you live on one of the lots in the neighborhood?
Yeah, so I live and own the house on lot 6, I think, so just directly to the west of the petitioner.
Understood. Thank you. Go ahead. You have 3 minutes.
I just wanted to clarify. So we've lived there since 2009, and in that time, the family that owned the house before, I can just clarify, the family that owned the house before the petitioner, they would park a boat back there from time to time, and four-wheelers, and when they had youth, that they would park a car back there from time to time. So we haven't noticed a significant change in the usage of that parking pad from the time before and the time after the current petitioners moved in.
Great. Thank you. Any other testimony?
No, that's it.
Do we have any questions of the petitioner, of the testimony from the board? Thank you for your testimony.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thanks for your service.
Do we have anybody else to testify?
I'm an individual.
Great.
My name is Deborah Luper, L-U-P-E-R.
Thank you, Ms. Luper. Just for clarification, could you tell me if you live in the neighborhood and what lot?
I do.
Which lot?
At Lot 11, Block 1, in the Diarman 2 subdivision.
That's off of Matthews Drive?
It is.
Thank you so much. Go ahead.
As a property owner and resident in the adjacent Diarman 2 subdivision for 27 years, I request that the Platting Board reject the proposed plat notes 3 and 4 modifications. They do not meet the approval criteria of the municipal code. The conditions that require the plat notes have not changed, and the plat notes are still required. Modification or removal will have negative effects. Each of the 4 lots in the petition area have an existing 3-car garage and driveway that provides ample access to Arboretum Street, as intended in the existing plat. A second driveway at the rear of the property is unwarranted. The pad is in the right-of-way. It is not private property. The paved part of Donald's does not go down the center of the right-of-way. It goes down the side on Diarman subdivision, and so it's skewed to one side. And so what's described as the pad is actually the right-of-way and has been used since I've been there since 1996 as a turnaround, or as the Hackenens back out, they back into that area of the right-of-way long before that subdivision was even there. The petitioner is requesting unnecessary breaks in the landscape buffer between R1 SL and R6 zone subdivisions to construct second private driveways onto Donald's. The paved portion of Donald's is only 15 feet wide and dead ends without a conforming turnaround. The pad is the turnaround. The extra driveways will increase traffic, noise, and vehicle pedestrian conflicts, as well as adversely affect public safety by hampering access by emergency services, snow plowing, city services, especially at the dead end across from Lot 7. Additionally, the subdivisions are 2 very different neighborhoods, and land use areas and landscape buffer is essential in preserving the quiet rural nature of our subdivision. Thank you for your attention, and I appreciate your full consideration. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Luper. Do we have any questions from the Platting Board of the testifier? Oh, Mr. Laffey.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Luper. Just to clarify, you are contending that the pad goes into the right-of-way given to the street, correct?
The pad is in the right-of-way. There is no goes into. The place the car is parked is in the right-of-way.
Is it entirely the right-of-way?
It is entirely in the right-of-way.
Okay. Thank you very much.
May I?
You still have 30 seconds. I believe, do we have her?
May I give you the written one? I also sent in additional, more lengthy testimony.
That's in our packet.
Did you?
Thank you so much for your testimony. Okay, one moment. After we do testimony. Keep that. Please come forward, state your name, spell your name, and let us know if you're an individual or with a group.
Individual.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Kendra. I'm residing at 3812.
Okay, could you give us your last name and
Sorry.
spell your last name, please?
Yes, it's Blockwitz, Blockwitz.
Great. And could you tell me what lot you live on?
I think it's lot 13. It's 3812 Matthews.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Go ahead, please. You have 3 minutes.
Donald's Street is part of the old hog farm neighborhood. It's called that because the DeArmonds and their homestead here had their homestead here, which was a hog farm. The neighborhood is on well water and septic tanks. It's zoned rural. It's different, and especially different from the Turnagain View estates. That neighborhood has sidewalks, fire hydrants, and manicured lawns. It's my understanding that when neighborhoods are zoned different, that they should have a buffer zone between them. Donald's Road does not go all the way through to Matthews Drive. When Donald's Road was sort of put in, it was obviously not built for much traffic. It's very narrow. It's right up against the property line on our side. And when I go down that road, I cannot turn around on that road, and I have a very small car. I want to leave things the way they are, so I'm opposed to the changes. However, if the new driveways are allowed, the residents that want a driveway should have to pay for the improvements to Donald's. Anyone who puts the time, effort, and money into a driveway and removes trees clearly intends to use that driveway. So you cannot tell me that it won't increase traffic on Donald's. Of course it'll be used more. And with more use, it will become a problem road. So I ask that it's built properly with Class B zoning. Since it's currently up against the property line, it should be shifted to the center, be 20 foot wide, 2 foot gravel shoulder on both sides, and proper ditches for drainage. There is no benefit to the old hog farm neighborhood. I'm concerned that we would have to pay for the improvement of Donald's with these additional driveways. We lose the trees that gave the neighborhoods a buffer zone. There's a loss of privacy. Those trees gave noise reduction, shade, and a wind block. Already, some trees and vegetation have been removed, so now we have a full view into the backyard of, I think it's lot 7. I'm also worried for drainage. If more driveways are put in, we're downhill, and simply during breakup season, it might become a swampy mess, contributing to the Donald Street kind of falling apart. Already, there are deep ditches on DeArmond. Will the road improvements and driveways with the lack of trees account for getting water running out to DeArmond? Those deep ditches already get filled in the spring. So I think it is best to just leave the buffer zone, not allow the driveways, because allowing the driveways will allow them to take out the trees and vegetation. And how could that be enforced when already they took out, lot 7 already took out trees and put in that driveway with gravel? So I'm against any change to the plat notes. But if you do decide to change the plat notes, there should be a requirement that any homeowner that wants to put in a driveway on Donald Street has to improve Donald Street from DeArmond to that driveway. Thank you for your consideration.
Excellent, thank you. Do we have any questions of the testifier? I'm sorry? Oh, yes. Form it in a question.
Is this your first time presenting in a format like this?
Oh, yes, sorry.
You did very well.
Oh, thank you.
I see you at Lowe's. I know you are shy and reserved.
Oh, thank
And I appreciate how much courage it took to come up here and present. And it was very well written. I'm impressed.
Oh, thank you.
I second that. Thank you so much for your time. Is there anyone else that would like to come forward and testify? At this time, we don't see any others to testify, so we would like the applicant to come forward and present a rebuttal. You have 5 minutes and 51 seconds.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay. I would like to...
Go ahead and state your name just so we're clear on the record.
Sure. Again, my name is Tim Votis.
Thank you.
Okay. I would like to thank Ms. Murray and Ms. Lupert for making my point that the parking pad has been in existence for 20-plus years. They confirmed that for me. The traffic on Donald Street is grossly exaggerated. The traffic department tells us it's designed as limited access road for 2,000 cars. It may get 2 cars a day, 5 on a busy day. Okay? And as for Mr. Hockening stating that it's my primary driveway, no, I have a 3-car driveway on the other side of Arboretum. And this driveway has not been used since at least December 9th of this year when I had shoulder surgery, and it has been unmaintained since that time. At this moment, it is in use today. As we said, we use it as for additional parking. We have a friend who's off at the airport and parking back there for a week and a half. Okay? That is the purpose of this. It gives me secondary access and additional ancillary parking. Okay? Primary, yeah. We feel that this is something that's been in place for 20 years. We've improved it. That's what we do. We put some rock on there to make it a little bit better. We did clear away brush and trees that were dead or dying. We've planted 13 beautiful lilacs. We have one of the most beautiful backyards in the subdivision. We have no intention of bringing down the beauty or the buffer of anything. We're going to build it back better. Okay? I'd also like to make one point that Mr. Hockenin Sr., I believe, mentioned that he had lived there 40 years. Just to clarify the record, when I moved in, John Pattison lived in the house that they're referring to across the street from me. Okay. That's all for me. Thank you.
Great. Do we have any questions of staff? I mean, from the board to the petitioner? Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
I believe that we are done with the testimony portion of this, and the decision now will rest with the board. Okay, so questions of, permission to close the public hearing. Do we have anybody else? Okay, this matter is closed in terms of the public hearing. The matter rests with the board. Okay, so just for clarification, we need a motion in the positive, and then the board will discuss. So first, we need a motion to approve and a second. Someone needs to second. Oh, it's been seconded. It has been moved by Mr. Sam Laffey and seconded by Ms. Brandy Pennington. Mr. Laffey, would you state your motion?
I move I'm moving case S1278, Turnigan Park Subdivision, Phase 2, Lots 2 through 10, to approve the request to amend Plat Notes 2 and 4, 3 and 4 from Plat 2000-124, subject to conditions 1 through 4, shown on page 7 of the staff report, with the modification to condition A.2.a to read, no direct access from lots 2 through 6 to Donald Street until such time Donald Street is improved to current municipal standards from Dale Armand Road to full frontage of an individual lot applying for driveway access.
Excellent, thank you. And would you speak to your motion, please? Do you intend to support this motion?
Yes, I do intend to support this motion. After hearing the testimony, reviewing the files, and reading the staff notes, I believe it is warranted, and I just want to be clear about a couple of things. One, a reason to not support this motion, in my opinion, is not that it has been used for 20 to 30 years before. That's not why we're here today. It's about whether or not it should be, what the pros, what the cons are, what it does to the neighborhoods of both parks, what it does to property values. And it seems from the staff notes that it's pretty clear to me that pros outweigh the cons of having this being used. From looking at this, it looks like, from the documents I have and from the testimony, it looks like it's pretty clear and convincing. This is entirely on private property. This is a small driveway, obviously. There's no question about that. But it does seem like 1 to 4 more driveways, having one car or boat parked there occasionally, doesn't impact the use that much. But it, according to testimony, it does sound like without massive improvements, most of the possible beneficiaries of this item wouldn't be able to use Donald Street. So it really seems like the question at the end of the day is one extra driveway parking maybe one car occasionally, or a boat or an RV occasionally, is that a problem? It seems like it's off the property line. I mean, unfortunately, this is a very small road. If we were asked to plat this today, I might not vote to approve it based on how small of the road it is, but that's how it was set up. I'm not going to question that. So I am in support of the proposal here.
Thank you, Mr. Laffey. It has been seconded by Ms. Brandy Pennington. Ms. Pennington, would you like to speak to your motion, your second? Go ahead and turn the mic on.
I think that there are really two separate issues that are occurring here, and some of my questions I have. I think there are two separate issues that are occurring here, and some of the questions I have may change my position now, but according to the code, and I've spent a lot of time reading it, there's nothing in their request that doesn't comply with what the municipality requires. And while I may not personally agree, it's still the law, and it's written there for a reason. And I guess I can't say I don't either way. What I can say is that I've been in your shoes before. I owned a wonderful home. I still own it, and a developer came through, and there were 4 people that used this street, and within a short period of time, there were 40 people using that same easement. It wasn't even a street, it was my yard and an easement that they were driving through. So I understand how uncomfortable the unforeseen can be. To that point, I own a home on Hillside Drive. The portion of Hillside Drive that my home is on would only ever see maybe 3 cars a week, because the majority of the traffic took O'Malley and the other half of the street traffic took Abbott. And after they opened Elmore, it's a thoroughfare. I don't see that happening on Donald. And also, I think, sometimes the fear in opposition is related to is related to unknowns, right? Unknown scenarios. Maybe there can be some type of recorded agreement for the purpose of these driveways. I don't personally think that someone's likely to use that as an everyday access to the back of their property. I think it's more reasonably prudent to assume that they would use it for RV storage or boat storage, but to that point, it's likely that their homeowners association would still have to monitor and maintain that. And it's unlikely that their HOA allows for RV and boat storage. These are just my thought processes. And with all of that, I mean, I have like 2 pages of notes. And if we had more time, I'd love to dive into it. But I think the reality is that they've met all of these conditions. And it's been a long process for everyone. And the best thing I can offer at this point in my expertise as a real estate broker for 14 years, I've sold over 1,500 properties. I've dealt with a lot of weird issues like easements or no easements, for utilities even on properties that are occupied, all sorts of interesting things that were overlooked as Anchorage was developed or absorbed other communities. And so for now, unless something comes up, I have to support this. And it's not that I understand how you feel. It's not that I personally want to agree, but it's just that it meets all the code criteria, unless I'm missing something.
We will discuss.
Okay, thanks.
Do any of the planning board members have any findings to discuss? On the phone?
I'm sorry, could you repeat the resolution one more time?
Do you have any findings to add to this discussion?
No.
Okay. Then I will. We have heard testimony tonight in regards that we have a lot of members of the public that are against this modification. We've also heard testimony that when he bought it in 2018, it was there. This driveway, whatever condition it was in, the driveway was there. And even possibly before that. We don't have real facts, but what we do know is the driveway was there and he bought it with a driveway on the back side. There's many parts of me that are conflicted about this situation. On the one, plat notes should carry strength. They should be held to the standard, and I believe that wholeheartedly. The other unfortunate part about this is that it was already there in against the plat notes. So even when the plat note was done, the driveway was there, potentially in 2000. We don't really know. That's not a fact. But what I do know is he bought it with the expectation of value that it was there. And I feel in fairness that that should be acknowledged. I also note that as a finding, it has been clearly stated that the roadway now exists very narrow in the right-of-way. And it seems apparent to me that any improvements have been to connect to the right-of-way and that no parking occurs within the right-of-way. They use it as a secondary access. And apparently there's many turnarounds. That's anecdotal, we don't really know. People go up, they turn around, they go back down, maybe. But what we do know is that there's 2 driveways on a 15-foot strip of paved surface. That in itself does not create a traffic hazard. So when we have 10,000 people using a 2-lane road, up to a 2-lane road, two driveways on a right-of-way really don't constitute a traffic problem. So I am being very conflicted on this. I also believe that they are following the code in granting this amendment. I don't take it lightly, and so my vote, and it's only one vote, is that I would vote to approve. The real world consequence of that vote is that likely this driveway will continue as it is right now, and nothing will change. And hopefully the neighbors will get along. That's my statement on the fact. Because I'm the chair, it's just I'm one vote. Do we have any findings? On the phone?
I'm on the phone here. So I also am conflicted about the situation. The difficulty is I can hear that Donald Street is not operating at the current capacity that it should be. Perhaps there may not be a significant...
Sorry, if you could speak up just a little bit.
Can you hear me better now?
That's good, thank you.
Can you hear me? Okay. I see two different problems here. First off, that Donald Street is not wide enough for a street within the municipality, and it needs to be widened. Secondary to that, there's obviously been an infringement from what the plat note was, but that should kind of have been dealt with many years ago. And it's kind of a situation where it's difficult to remove that access after having multiple owners exchange hands. So what I would be curious about is whether or not we would be able to approve the exception and the removal of this plot note while making steps to be able to solve the problem that currently exists within Donald Street, which it sounds like we need to be able to take approximately 5 to 10 feet on either side of the road in order to widen it, so that if in the future more traffic does occur, then it will be able to have that in capacity. How exactly that would be formatted, I am not sure, but I would like to at least open the discussion.
Thank you. For clarification, the plat has all one-sided on Donald Street at this point in time. If it were ever to be widened, it would be widened into the lots to the east. And those lots would all lose the fact that there is no road on their lots at this point in time. And so if, say, Lot 5, Lot 4, any of the lots 2 through 6 ever chose to exercise their right, they would have to improve it up to the end of their lot. And that would be pretty onerous for them to do that. And lots 7, 6, 8, and 9, and 10, 7, 8, 9, and 10 would all then be having a backyard on a much larger street. I personally don't foresee that. To your point, you would have to make an amendment, make a motion to amend the motion to approve with whatever language you would suggest, and then we would vote that in or out. Or add a condition that we could vote in or out. Do you wish to make an amendment? Do we have any input from staff at this point in time?
Mr. Chair, no, you're on the right path there as far as procedure and findings of fact. I believe we may have lost Mr. Young. Is he still on? Okay. Then,
I'm still on the phone.
Then as you said, Mr. Chair, he needs to make a motion if he wants to amend that, or you guys continue on and vote as you stated.
Thank you very much, staff.
After hearing Don's testimony, I think we should just move forward with the vote.
Thank you, Mr. Young. Are there any other findings or discussion?
I guess to speak in terms
Mr.
of
Young,
my
go
current
ahead.
perception on the issue, here's the situation. I think that the street has been operating as it is now for, it sounds like, around 20 years. And it would be, in some ways, more difficult to make the waves of having the order to correct as was originally written in the plat note. I think that it would be best, because it's not as though this like driveway was a new development that the owner made in transgressing on their neighbor's property. They were just doing as was already happened. I think that it would be an undue burden for them to have to go and correct all of that. And for that reason, I will be voting to approve the removal of the plat note.
Thank you, Mr. Young. Ms. Pennington?
Are there any petitioners, these are, in my opinion, two separate issues, but is anyone here who's asking for a driveway? Are there any open permits or requests for driveways?
Through the chair, Ms. Pennington, no, there's no active driveway permits currently. If it gets approved, then yes, they will have to come in and apply for a driveway permit. And everything is checked by right-of-way and traffic as far as what they're going to build, what they're allowed to build, etc.
At that point, will they require the HOA to give approval
For
for
no.
the driveway permit?
Nope, there's no.
So if there's no request for a driveway permit, then there's nobody here that's asking for a driveway?
Well, the first step is to modify the plat note, which we're here for tonight, and that will, with these conditions that we placed on that, then they have to follow those conditions, and one of those is to apply for a driveway permit. So they won't be able to, they can't just go tomorrow or the next day, and they have to obtain a driveway permit through the municipality.
So the intention is to modify this plat note and then to apply for a driveway permit?
That is the steps that the petitioners will need to make, yes.
Who are the petitioners that will apply for a driveway permit?
It would be Mr. Votis and then the other, as you see in the application, the other properties, which basically, it could be any, lots 2 through 10. Any one of them could come in.
I understand.
After this modification approval.
How does this, so then the petitioner's lot is the lot that won't have to pay for road upgrades, correct?
That is correct. Mr. Votis would just come in and he has to get a driveway permit through the municipality.
And so if the remaining petitioners on this application end up asking for driveways and then the road is improved, how does it adversely affect the mill rate or the property taxes for the people on that street?
What's that? We're not 100% sure if it's ARTS or LURSA, but if it's ARTSA, it's just part of the taxes. That's something outside of the planning department.
So I asked that question earlier, if it was a privately maintained road or if it was a municipality thing. Maybe I don't.
It's municipally maintained road. So it's already currently, it's municipal maintained.
It's possible I don't fully understand what a limited road service agreement is then, because I assumed that was like a private maintenance thing that came out of your property taxes. I didn't realize the municipality was maintaining those.
We don't have a representative from the LURSA here, but it's our understanding that those are municipal maintained, and the ARTSA is out of, the ARTSA funds.
What does ARTSA stand for?
Anchorage Roads and Drainage Service Area. And there's a specific boundary that's stated in the maps as to what the ARTSA boundary is.
Acronym for everything.
It's
Thank you.
municipality run,
Mhm.
funded, and administered through contract.
You'll need to.
Thank you.
It's muni.
Thank you. So drainage is a concern, but there are definitely mechanisms that driveways can be constructed out of. Sorry, staff, through the chair.
Well, as it is a municipal maintained roadway, they deal with drainage, and as you see, they've improved that with a wrap, so it's the municipality's maintenance of that 30-foot of right-of-way.
Mhm.
So if there's a drainage issue, it's the municipality that will maintain that.
Might it be a recommendation of the municipality to ask the petitioner to use a material, let me pull up the name of it. Well, you guys, I'm sure you're familiar with it. It's a product that looks like a grid, but when you apply it, grass grows in between. That would take care of the drainage concern, wouldn't it? So basically what I'm trying to do is figure out how do we ease the concerns of the people who are against the petition, right? Because they brought up some concerns, and I'd like to give them some reasonable assurance that if this motion passes, or this amendment passes, that there's still some type of positive outcome that will not so much affect them, will so drastically affect them. Sorry, I have a teething baby, and it's been a rough couple of weeks with that guy. So I'm tired, and I may not be making sense, so if you'd like me to find another way to say the same thing, I will.
No, Mr. Chair, were you about to say something?
Well, I think honestly that we could debate a lot of this a long time. And at the end of the day, we have to stick to the code, the facts, and the interpretation of code. And if what we're trying to do is outside of that, that's simply not within the power of the Platting Board. The Platting Board's primary duty is to read the code, interpret the code, and then listen to a case and decide, does it meet code or does it not meet code, in our opinion, as residents of the municipality of Anchorage.
I fully understand. I'm just curious.
That's kind of the limit of where we stop and start.
So what I'm hearing from you is stop asking questions, because it's not here for us to discuss.
Well, I'm not telling you to stop asking questions. I'm asking to stick to the clarity of what the Platting Board can do and can't do. So, I mean, we could add an amendment, and the board could vote to add item C, like we talked with Mr. Young, that would add another requirement for them to remove this, and then we could vote on whether we could add that to the motion or not.
I have nothing further to say.
Okay. I have a question. So, Mr. Gould, go ahead on the record, please.
To staff, if they apply for a permit to put a driveway in, that will force them to come to municipal code and to make sure that it's built according to code. Is that correct?
No.
Yeah, through the chair, Mr. Gould, yes, that is correct.
Right.
It'll be reviewed by right-of-way and traffic to the municipal standards.
Okay, so it'll be built to municipal standard, and they'll make sure that it's not in the right-of-way and all that sort of stuff. They'll make sure that it's done correctly.
Yes, that is correct.
All right, very good. Thank you.
Mr. Laffey?
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make two quick findings. One, I would find that under the municipal code, the conditions that are required for the original plat notes and the original plat have changed, and the need for this particular plat note in its original form has changed, and I see that there is a legitimate need to change it in the way that has been proposed by staff and by the petitioner. And then secondly, I would make the finding that the modification of the plat note will not have a negative impact on directly adjacent or nearby properties.
Thank you, Mr. Lavi. Do we have any further findings or comments from the board? Then fair enough, I believe we should vote.
Mr. Young?
For the vote? Are we voting already?
Yes, we're on the vote, please.
I couldn't hear.
Do you need it read back
Yes,
to you?
I'm voting in. I approve. I vote to approve.
Okay, thank you.
The motion has passed it. Okay. And I believe that, so we have persons to be heard. We don't have any persons to be heard. We don't have any reports from the chair, the secretary, nor the committee. Do we have any board member comments? Mr. Laffey.
Thank you all very much for coming out tonight. I know some people have already left, but I believe I speak for the entire board when we thank you all for your time, testimony. This is obviously extraordinarily valuable to all of you, and I think all of the board members here respect that and appreciate the time that you put into our city and our community. Thank you.
Any other board member comments? I'll make a comment as a board member, not as the chair. As I said earlier, I struggle with these decisions. We're not going to make everybody happy, but I also believe that there is something to be said for precedent. And in the case of precedent, the driveway has been there, and it was now come to a head because people don't want it there. And now they find a plat note that says you can't have it, but it was already there. And in fairness to the person that bought it in 2018, he bought it. Was there a disclosure? I don't know. But he bought it with the expectation that he could use it. And to take that away now is also unfair. And so I'm saying this in my very opinion, because if I bought something and it was now, oh, here's this loophole, you take it away, and you reduce the value of my lot and my resale value, because now I can't sell it with that valuable piece of whatever it is, I would be upset. So I'm sensitive to that as well. Anyway, for what it's worth, that's my input. Any other comments? Again, I would like to thank everybody for their time. I know that you spent a lot of effort, and you stayed on time, and you participated in a public process, and I appreciate your time. Thank you so much. And with that, we'll adjourn. Brandy, go ahead.
There are actually ways to validate when that driveway was put in, and it's through aerial photography. It's quite expensive, or you can file through the Freedom of Information Act through the municipality. So I feel like several times it's been mentioned, we don't know, and the lack of disclosure does not excuse whether or not the situation exists. So there are mediums you can use to get that information, and the municipality holds that. Additionally, there are court cases that are ongoing and have been passed recently in the past with issues that are very similar. I would encourage you to look at court view I can talk to you later about it. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? Then we'll adjourn. Thank you so much for your time.